All right. Well, every once in a while, I get to meet someone running for office, and I think, yeah, this person actually gets it. So this week's guest is Erin Petrey. Am I saying the last name right? Okay.
Yep, you are.
A progressive Democrat. Um, Kentucky has progressive Democrats. I have proof of it right in
We
front of my
actually have a
face.
lot of them.
I
We have a
know.
lot of them. Yeah.
We get a bad rap here too. But progressive Democrat running for Congress in Kentucky's 6th district. Um,
Mhm.
she's got background in renewable energy, infrastructure, international diplomacy,
Mhm.
community development, and she's doing it all without taking a dime of corporate PAC money. Sound
Or
familiar?
APAC money.
I like her already. So welcome back to the open seat. This is kind of my project, a podcast about what it actually takes to run for office in this country, whether it be local, state, or federal. Um, and we are graced with someone running for Congress, and that's a big lift. I can tell you that just from running a state race and seeing some of the congressional candidates. There is a big difference between um, the land you cover and the population you talk to. Um, I really do enjoy seeing candidates that are serious candidates and they're in it for the right reasons. And what I've read about you so far, I think that we're right on point with that. So, a Kentucky native,
Yep.
practitioner, um, again running for Kentucky's 6th congressional district, which, if you're keeping score, is Andy Barr's seat.
Yeah, he's not retiring. He's decided to go and run for Mitch McConnell's seat because even though he's one of the most ineffectual legislators I think I've ever really seen in the recent history of Kentucky, he thinks he deserves a promotion. The audacity and the confidence of a mediocre white man. So 6 terms. Mhm. It's really interesting because, like, most of the people I talk to, they say, "Oh my gosh, thank God, I hate Andy Barr. Andy Barr is the worst." He also is plastering all of our TVs with just disgustingly hateful ads saying things like, "It's not a sin to be white." And it's really gross. But I still see his signs everywhere, though. It's it's really disappointing that people are still behind him, despite the fact he is selling out literally everyone. Mhm. It is a machine. He's done pretty much nothing. I think that when people do have anything good to say about him, they say that they've been really helpful with veteran constituent services, which, to be honest, like, that's kind of the minimum, right? Like, that's your job. So saying that you're good at doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing and you're not really going and above and beyond expectations, I don't know. It's like, so you're doing part of what we asked you to do, but he's a terrible legislator. He hasn't actually done anything. He's a placeholder. People call him a seat filler. And he's the most nothing burger of a person. He's trying to do this
For
like
sure.
virtue signaling, saying, "Oh, look, I'm even helping you get your IDs." And I'm like, "Are you helping people pay for them too?"
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and you bring up another good point, the SAVE Act. You know, I was getting asked about the Save Act.
Hmm.
Um, and I think I don't blame voters for not knowing the difference between state and federal legislation because it all can kind of intermingle. But has there been, in your experience, a kind of black and white issue? Either you're for it or you're against it, um, and they don't give you any middle ground. Have you? I mean, how's that experience been for you? Because I guess just from my perspective,
Hmm.
what they're trying to accomplish, we already have in law. This is already um, state law, and in every state, I mean, you have to be, a natural born citizen, have an
Hmm.
ID, and all that good stuff. So, what's your district and your constituents saying about it?
Well, I mean, everyone I talk to also thinks it's absurd. I mean, even here in Kentucky, we already have voter ID for, for elections. I'll be honest with you, the thing that scares me the most about the SAVE Act is just all of the news about it and all of the conversations
Yep.
around it. So people think they can't vote.
Right.
And so this is
Right.
also voter deterrent. And so they're trying to scare people out of voting. And this is the other thing about the SAVE Act, right? I mean, Kentucky is especially one of those states that when the real ID was proposed, like, what was that, over a decade ago? Um,
Yeah.
Kentucky was one of the states that was like the last to actually get it done. And they
Sure.
kept postponing. And if it takes us that long to get the real ID, this is going to take longer, even longer, right? If you want us to have a different kind of
Yeah.
ID. Now, real ID should suffice, right? But there are still
Should.
so many people out there without a real ID. My sister flew for like the first time last year, and she did not have a real ID, and she couldn't go to the airport without it, right? She couldn't fly. So the biggest challenge there was that she really needed to be able to figure it out. We decided to, try to get her an appointment, and she would have potentially had to go to, 3 hours across the state to get an appointment in time. And making sure that people actually have the ability to access the services they need. And this also comes on the heels of a really, frankly, stupid move that our state government had, which was using regionalized offices for getting DMV and IDs, which makes it harder for people in rural communities, people with disabilities, those kind of challenges to actually get their IDs. One of the things I really disagree with is having really early deadlines to be able to register to vote and to change your party.
Absolutely.
And they said, especially if you have closed primaries. And I said, well, why? Why can't they just do that on the day of? And they said, oh, well, it'd be too much of an administrative burden. And I'm like, well, it'd be an administrative burden to deal with all of these things related to the SAVE Act, too. So you would rather disenfranchise citizens rather than, do a little bit more administrative work. I just don't understand that. It's like saying our veterans don't deserve their health care or their benefits because, it would just take a little bit more administrative burden. I'm like, this is
Sure.
absurd. Because
Yeah.
it's administrative, I mean, it's not worth it. It's disenfranchising people from constitutional rights because you don't want to do a little extra paperwork, but you're asking us all to take on extra paperwork and extra expenses while our economy is in the most dire straits in a very long time.
Exactly.
Yet it's death by 1,000 really deep stab wounds at this point. It's not even little cuts.
Right.
It's hitting us at every single angle. And if they want to make those services free, sure. If you want to make it free and easy to get those IDs, then I'd be sure, fine. But the problem is, I go out and I speak to constituents who don't have, two nickels to rub together, as they
Sure.
say, right?
Or
Let's look at
transportation
Starbucks.
sometimes. Yeah.
People usually look at Starbucks and say, oh, they offer college tuition, they offer healthcare for part-time workers, they pay really highly, and they are touting that their associates earn, $30 an hour in, both wages and the added benefits. But now they're cutting off their Lyft benefit, which I was reading something today by the service workers union that said that there are a lot of people at Starbucks who are going to have to quit their jobs because they don't have transportation, because they are now having to spend an extra $400. These are people who work in food service and they can't afford groceries.
And that's just,
They're literally living off of Starbucks food because their Starbucks salary will not cover their ability to live a life.
and
Not
then,
even a life where they're buying avocado toast, but a life where they can actually afford to eat and pay their rent.
and you wonder why they've been organizing as, as a union here and there. I mean, we have a, conservative commentators here that just exactly they play into that. These are just, trust fund kids working at Starbucks and
Yeah.
doing,
No, they're not. These
um,
are regular people.
yes, yeah. It doesn't make any sense at all. And then it's left to us to subsidize the owner of whatever franchise or the, you know, CEO and
Mhm.
leadership of Starbucks to make sure that their workers are, I don't know, well fed, have a place to eat, sleep, um, valid transportation, and then you get them depending on social safety net benefits because of it. So um, it's definitely a downward spiral. Absolutely.
Yes. So yeah, so that's really what we're seeing, but I mean, affordability is the number one thing really across the nation. And I mean,
Mhm.
obviously it's not a hoax. We have JD Vance getting on TV and saying that, yeah, well, our farmers are complaining about fertilizer, but it's just a blip, guys. It's just a blip. And I was like, they're not able to feed people. If farmers cannot do their work, we will not have food. We
Right.
will die. We already have food deserts. Food is already too expensive. We will die. This is not a blip. People being able to afford to feed themselves is not a blip. It's an actual crisis, and we need to treat it as such.
Amen. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. And I think you hit on another good point of, you know, people look at what were um, oil prices, going through the Strait of Hormuz or whatnot,
Yes.
and they just think of cars and gasoline and it's so much more than that. And
No, it's people like tree services, lawn care services.
yeah,
It's the diesel semi trucks that move over 70% of goods across this nation, including our food.
and then it trickles down because if the food's not getting to its destination in a timely manner, um, I mean, just all down the line, prices increase, and it's a death knell. And from your perspective, what do you see as the solution? How do you propose, magic wand? How do we fix it?
Mhm. That's going to go broader, though, right? And so I have a master's degree in diplomacy and international commerce,
Okay,
and I also focused on Middle East politics.
great.
Okay. Regime change doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It didn't work in Libya. It didn't work in Iraq. It didn't work in Afghanistan. It's not going to work in Venezuela. It does not work. You have to go in and you have to support opposition groups. That's what we have to be doing. If we actually want to do anything about it, this has to be led twofold, well, actually threefold, I believe. One, through the intelligence community, through actually supporting and funding opposition groups so that they are the ones who seize power. And then, you can always help provide cover, but the externally, the United States has a like 0% record,
Absolutely.
0% record on regime change. So like, why are we doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? Number two, we have to focus on diplomatic options. Yes, they are slow, but they are worth it. There's a reason that they are slow. It's because they work towards a lasting conclusion and a lasting and binding agreement. Number three, we have to focus on the soft power and engaging in soft power. So cultural exchanges, not looking at them as just like the axis of evil. And so, we we
Yeah,
have to first off get out of our own heads that American exceptionalism is killing us. American exceptionalism is turning us
that's
into irrelevance.
it is. And
Just because it's the
yeah,
American way
yeah,
doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way.
that's what that's what's drawn me to you. Is the uh, unapologetic liberal, unapologetic Democrat is, I won't say it's few and far between, but it's refreshing that you're saying that out loud because so many people give pushback on, oh well,
Yeah.
you're not saying America is the best. Well, of course it's the best, and you, when you start looking at every metric, it's not the best. And what feeds that? You hit the nail on the head. Um, what does how do your constituents feel about that? I mean, what's the, again, what's the pulse with your district with um, someone that's saying the hard part out loud, I guess.
So, people give me two different responses usually to my candidacy, and these are Democrats. Number one is, well, maybe you're a little too left for this district. And I think, frankly, they are out of touch
Yeah,
because we have continued to put centrists and moderates up against the Republicans here in this district and continue to lose. Because people don't want a Republican and a Republican light, they want a clear
sure.
choice.
Yeah,
And I'm actually the
yeah.
only one who provides that clear choice. But the second and most resounding thing I hear is, thank God we have a real progressive to choose. And people say, we have not had this. We haven't had someone who's actually saying
I
these
think
things
it.
out loud, someone who is being unapologetic about it, saying they're popular.
Sure. Yeah, and at that point, you're not just you know energizing your base, you're expanding it too, because you're getting people excited to actually get out. Mind blowing, and it's you think they can't get much worse than they just keep saying the quiet part out loud. And again, what are the results? So this is the sixth district, Andy Barr's territory, for over a decade at least. Um, what's your pitch, I guess,
Hmm.
to folks that are saying, or I guess written off that district as an unwinnable district? What do you say to that? How would you, I guess, say to
I don't
that?
think anyone's written our district off. We're a target flip. I mean, even the DNC, which I hate, they have even
Same.
targeted our district as a key flip. I really don't think that anybody's going to write our district off.
Sure.
If anyone wanted to write off a race in Kentucky, it's the Senate race. Which I do think is going to go Republican. If Charles Booker, who's probably going to win the Senate nomination, is able to eke out a victory there, then I mean, I'm thrilled, right? I just don't know. I just don't see that path to victory.
Sure.
But I'm right. But this particular district
Yeah.
can flip blue, but I think that it can't flip blue without someone who shows a very clear difference between the MAGA candidate. Not just saying you have to vote for a Democrat because they're not a Republican. It's like, you need to vote for this progressive Democrat because this is what she
Yep.
is going to commit to and deliver for you.
That's exactly that. I mean, that is hitting it on the head because I think that, well, I know that because I've seen it, lived through it. Um, you have to differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack, the rest of the Democrats. Really have that stark difference between what you are and what this MAGA candidate is. This blue wave that has been talked about, we saw it here. I mean, the just my polling location, for instance, in 2023, there was 193 voters that voted there. This past Tuesday, um, it was 600. So it's incremental, not incremental, but um, little by little, you see these precincts showing up in 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 primary years where you really don't see that big of a turnout, and it's really not much to write home about. Um, so yeah, I mean that's good. Same with this district here. It's they call it purple. I personally don't like that. It's it's just kind of cringy. It bothers me.
We'll probably see that closer to 20 to 25,000 for this primary for judge seats. We have primaries for city council seats. We also have this. So there's a lot more. There's a lot more reasons that people will head to the polls.
That's a great point. That's a yeah. I mean,
Yeah, you
we
said it was like
have, you
10,000
know,
was, yeah, that's crazy.
yeah. I mean, of the registered cuts to Medicaid, we have unwinding that happens here, so they get redetermined every year, then they get kicked off. Um, federally, they can pass a law, they can put something in a waiver or whatnot that would, prohibit or inhibit people from losing Medicaid coverage. Um, and it's a complicated program because every state does it differently. And Indiana has after COVID, um, we rolled back the kind of the lenient guidelines that were put in place for people. I think the same thing is happening in if that was a an issue that has been coming up, or is that something that you've been in talks with your state agency or your state representatives or your state legislators versus federal Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services? Is that cleared up at all, or is that just too confusing of a question?
Here's the thing, right? Is that like when it comes to like social support programs like Medicaid or WIC or SNAP or any of those things, when the government shutdown happened, I was very vocal in saying that I believe that those things should be put in like a safe, like into a kind of black box that are not
Mhm.
touchable, and they should be funded not in line with the annual budgets, but off cycle so that they cannot be touched because this is actual lifelines that people depend on and they should not be politicized. Care that. I mean, first off, I believe we need Medicare for all. That will solve these issues. But then beyond that, we need to actually make sure that we're taxing the people who need to be taxed, right? Once we have more money into our coffers and we are using it efficiently by like doing things like abolishing ICE, which is more funded than any other law enforcement agency in the country, and the Marine Corps, we can better utilize tax money to actually help our regular people do things, right? And so where we really are using our money appropriately and investing in our people, not into corporations, not giving corporations welfare, not spending trillions and trillions of dollars on the military industrial complex that actually does nothing to keep us safe. But they say, oh my gosh, you want to cut the military. I'm like, yeah, honestly, I do want to cut the military because the military does not need trillions and trillions of dollars into brand new supercharged airplanes because we already have plenty of airplanes and we are not actively at war. These should be focused on defense mechanisms, not offensive mechanisms. And so I think there's a lot being done in the military as well that we can move things around because why is the VA struggling to make sure that they give their people health care and making sure that their active duty soldiers are not standing in food stamp lines and in food pantry lines while they're out there risking their lives for our country? So don't talk to me about being, unpatriotic and not supporting the military. I support the actual soldiers. I don't support who are profiting off of our tax dollars by saying that they're making us safer through buoying the military industrial complex.
Yeah, stick to that. Piles of money to do exactly what you said. Go make us a stealth jet that disappears in midair or something, and something and they barely use some of most of um these stealth fighters that they build and build and build and build just to have them, I guess, just for a rainy day. But yeah, that you make a really good connection there with going back to the VA. And it's really a list of it really comes down to priorities, to be honest. That's are we going to fund the military or the military complex? And there's such a stark contrast there that
Yeah, it's like, what are we actually funding here? Are we funding our actual men and women in service, or are we funding the wealthy executives of all of the defense contractors? Because those are two very different things.
sure. Um, you know, what has surprised you most about running during your campaign? Is there anything that has jumped out at you um, that you weren't expecting, or maybe you learned, or anything? Any light bulb moments?
Well, yeah, I mean, the number one thing is the people who talk to you and the people who start talking to you and the people who start talking to you. Because a lot of people are really chicken shit when it comes to politics, and they love to be like, oh, yeah, politics. I'm super into politics and I care a lot. But then the second you're on the ballot, all of a sudden they're like, oh, we can't talk to you right now. And it's really jacked up.
Yeah, it's funny how that works.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it hit it on the head again. I mean, it's okay. Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
I appreciate you taking the time with me. Um, hopefully we can
Yeah.
follow up maybe again, and when we get a little bit more connectivity, better on my end. But I wish you the best. You know, I
Thank
mean,
you.
you get
I mean,
it,
the whole
and
reason I did this
that's
was
such a
because
nice.
I wanted to make sure. Yeah. Yeah.
It's it no, it's just it's refreshing to see somebody that knows the issues, knows what the hell they're talking about, and is a qualified candidate.
Fingers crossed. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Andrew. You take
No,
care
no,
and
you
keep it
got
up.
this. Yep. Thank you. You as well.
Thank you so much. All right, take care.